and he said, "I hope one day you will forgive me for what I'm about to do." And the next thing is I heard a gunshot.
You're about to meet Elizabeth, a big-time executive who even worked for Homeland Security at one point, a super smart and savvy woman by any standard. Well, Elizabeth met a guy on a dating app who ultimately scammed her out of close to $1 million. And this guy wasn't working alone. He had a team of other scammers who would pop up at just the right moment to grease the wheels of the con. Look, love is the most powerful force there is in the universe. And if a con artist can get you to fall in love with them, or fall in love with the happily ever after they're selling, then you'll do anything for them. And when it comes to love scams like this one, that's exactly what they're counting on.
Jonathan, I first of all, I want to thank you for taking time for me. When I saw your story and saw the hurt that you went through, but also saw your strength, it inspired me. And Jonathan, that's when I reached out to you, because I thought, boy, if he could come to some resolution and really get involved in doing your own detective work, I thought it would be beneficial for me to reach out to you. And so I did. And so you have been my inspiration for the last 4.5 years, to be honest with you, with all the work done.
Right. Thank you so much. That really moves me to no end. Thank you.
Very true. You're very welcome. And thank you very much, because you truly have helped many of us. And that's what I'm hoping to do today with you, is to help others. I don't want anyone to go through what we've been through. And if there's some way that I can prevent, I don't want somebody to get into a scam and then have to listen to me, but actually prevent them from getting into being scammed. That's what I'd like to be able to do.
Amen, sister. 1000%. Our interests are aligned. How did you meet this guy? His name's Michael, right? Or he told you his name was Michael?
That is the name he used, was Michael Lawrence. I'm going to step back to December of 2018. A very dear friend of mine actually was going through a difficult divorce, and he did his profile on Bumble, and he came to visit me and said, "I think you need to do that, because you haven't been dating for a while and you need to get, meet some people." So I said, reluctantly, I said, "Oh, for heaven's sakes," one of those things. Okay, okay, okay. Well, he did sign me up, or he did add my profile with my knowledge on Bumble, but I was so busy with work at the time that I really didn't pay much attention. And that's my fault. I understand that, but I didn't pay any attention. And the next thing I knew, I get an email, I think it was, from Bumble that said I was signed up, and it's the one where you swipe to the right. The female has the control, supposedly. So anyway, I did a couple of dates through Bumble in 2019. Very nice people. We had dinner, met them in person, and then I was at the end of a change in my career in April of 2019, and I was ready for pursuing my next chapter, and I spent some time away from doing any kind of work, and spent the summer in traveling and being with friends and family. So I had my whole summer planned in 2019. And in the meantime, I get a couple more swipes from or profiles that popped up from Bumble. And there was one that looked very interesting. And the person's name was Michael Lawrence, and supposedly a scholar, a Stanford graduate, had his own oil and gas company. He was the CEO, and we connected. Long story short, we connected.
And you've verified all of these things for people wondering. He had a LinkedIn page. He had a website. Like, this was a real guy.
Oh, real guy. He had not only one LinkedIn page, he had several LinkedIn pages. Plus he had a website, because I was a little hesitant for whatever reason in the beginning about him. And so he provided me with a website of his oil and gas company, which of course now has been deleted, as well as lengthy information about his background, his company. He was wanting to retire in a year. He was going to sell his company to either Exxon or BP. It was a very well orchestrated, if I can say that now, story that I bought into. And
And that is a red flag. Most
absolutely,
people are under the assumption that liars, if someone's lying, they'll be vague. If someone's lying, they won't tell you the whole story. But con artists are the opposite. Con artists snow you with details. And this guy had so many details for you about him, his life, his kids, his companies. He had websites, he had LinkedIn, because in his mind, if he can give you all those details, there's no way you're going to think it was fake.
exactly. Or question him. Absolutely. And pictures galore. I know I've shared pictures with you, pictures with his name, Michael Lawrence, on the pictures, backdrops of seminars that he was attending. He even orchestrated incidents where there was a fire drill on the oil rig that supposedly he was in Alaska. That was one of his places that he was traveling to, among many that he told me about.
And you
During
heard the fire alarm over the phone.
Oh yes, oh yes, and people screaming. And so you get very invested in this person because I'm thinking something's happened to him. But even before that happened, he took me down the path of daily phone calls, very much engaged in what he was doing during the days, the seminars he was going to, because he implied that we were going to get together for dinner or for something. But each time there was a date scheduled, something came up. So that was my other red flag,
Right.
because if you think about it, that isn't how it usually happens, right? Somebody
It
you find,
isn't.
right?
Yeah.
He did not. He was going off to Washington, D.C. The interesting thing, and I'm just going to go back to Bumble because I know that many of the online sites today, Jonathan, are really working hard. I don't know that Bumble is, but Match is working hard in putting safety measures in place. So what happened to me won't happen. But what happened was, right when we first met, he said he was going to Washington, D.C. to give a lecture. And actually on Bumble, it showed him going to Washington, D.C. because it was a location finder. Because I
So
checked.
you could see his location
Yes.
corroborated with what he said. He said he was going to Washington, D.C., and by God, that's what it said on the app. He's in Washington, D.C. And can you say what state you're in?
Georgia.
You're in Georgia. And was he ever in Georgia according to the app?
Well, the problem with that was shortly after I found that location, he very eloquently got me off the app so that we began texting and he began calling me. So I couldn't check, and he came off the app also.
Yeah. Okay.
So he could, it was very clever. He told me he had a home in Georgia and he had a home in London. His daughter was a medical student at Oxford University. He had also incorporated in the story the name of his lawyer, who was in London, told me all about his lawyer friend and how they've been friends for years, told me about a best friend that when he sent pictures, this best friend was in those pictures with him on board the oil rigs, this, that, and the other, a gentleman that he's worked with, that he'd gone to Stanford. He even met former President Obama and a wife and sent a picture of him with them. Of course,
My God. I mean, that has to be impressive. You must have been so impressed by this man.
I thought, well, you know what they say is it's too good to be true. And I was a little bit in my head. It said, is this too good to be true? But he didn't give me time to think about it. The more I would think about it, he would call me. He would make sure I was engaged in all aspects of whatever he was doing. He gave me websites to look at, telephone numbers to call. When he was in Alaska, he gave me another cell phone number to call him. So there was this orchestrated plan for
Yeah.
several months before they really reeled me in.
What did he sound like?
He had a It sounded to me as an Italian accent.
So he's this
Italian.
exotic Italian accented guy, an oil and gas man. You've seen pictures. You even spoke to him at one point on video chat, correct?
On Skype. We had a conversation. He looked very real to me. It matched his pictures. He moved. Used hand gestures. So it looked very real to me, and that it was him. At least the pictures that they sent.
And these messages that he was sending you, you guys were talking and texting like teenagers, right? Is my understanding.
Yes, exactly.
Every day, many times a day, early in the morning, late at night.
My love, you will never know just how much I adore you. I've so missed you, and I don't know how you've captured my heart this deep. You are adorable, my angel.
And again, it was just more of that romantic type of engagement, if you will, to get me really bought in to the story.
I
And
mean,
he did.
essentially to get you to fall in love with him.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And this is something I discovered when I went down the rabbit hole of my own con artist. Love is the most powerful force in the universe. And I say this all the time. People will kill for love. People will die for love. You know, a woman will lift a 2-ton car off her child out of love and adrenaline. You know, miraculous things happen in the name of love. So that is a con artist's mission 101, is to get you to fall in love with them. And I fell in love with mine. You fell in love with yours. He seems so loving and kind and caring, and wants to know more, wants to know you're okay and worried about you, right? Like, talk me through what the gist of these messages were.
Well, the interesting thing is he had done his homework on me too. So he knew some aspects of my life that I didn't realize and I didn't connect until it was too late. But one of the things that he told me that he had been through in the last 3 years, his wife had passed away 3 years ago. This was in 2019, and she had died of ovarian cancer. I happened to be on a board of an ovarian cancer charity. And so, yes. And so I reacted the same way. I thought, wow, so I empathized, and I talked with him about it and how devastating it is for the families and certainly for those loved ones that passed. But I knew quite a bit. So that was just one of the many things that he would talk about. Then he would talk about the loss and his daughter being gone, and how much he missed having a relationship, and how much he wanted to be in a relationship with me. And he began to refer to me as his wife. So that was another red flag. Yeah, he did, because he even put it in writing. I know one day that you will be my wife, and so I want to reach out to you as though we are already man and wife. And I said, Michael, I remember at the time I said, Michael, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves here, because I need to get to know you better. We need to be in person, et cetera, et cetera. So I knew in my head that some things were getting a little fast, but I was so busy and distracted with my own life aside from him that I didn't pay the attention that I needed to pay.
So it was 4 months before he ever got any money, correct?
Right. Right.
And over the course of that 4 months, on the timeline, at what point would you say you fell in love with him, or in love with who you thought he was?
Well, I don't know that I was completely in love. I was enthralled with him, and I thought that there could be a possibility of a long-term relationship with him. And I trusted him. I trusted what he was saying to me. I trusted what he was sending to me. His kindness, there was actual kindness in his discussions with me on the phone. And he talked a lot about friendships and his family and his daughter again. And so we became, I don't know what the word is, but there was certainly an engagement or an enchantment with him. And so I'm not sure I fell in love with him, but I certainly was totally enthralled with him. And
And
another.
were you ever ending phone calls or messages with "love you, bye, love you too"?
I think toward maybe the fourth month, he did say to me, he loved me.
Yeah.
And I said, thank you. I said, I really care about you. But again, I was trying to keep things kind of at a steady pace because I wasn't sure, since I hadn't met him.
Right. And
We were
each time he set a date up, what were some of the excuses? First off,
so,
how many times did you set up a date to meet face to face?
almost weekly,
And
almost
every
weekly.
time there's an excuse, what were the excuses like?
Well, a lot of the excuses were mine too, because I was traveling so much. And
Right.
so I was around. So every time he was available, I wasn't. And I don't know if it was a coincidence or if he was somehow perhaps engaged with my schedule too. But yeah, there were frequent times, and each time he was called away to help with a big project, either in Alaska or in Asia. One of the trips he had was an unplanned trip to I think he said he went to Denmark to check. This is where it all began. Now on the money part is where he was going to settle an estate um, that his father left him. And I think he said he was in Germany, Denmark, somewhere. And again, I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention at the time to that, but I said, okay, good, have a nice trip. And he even sent me a picture of him on the airplane. So the next thing I knew, he called me. He said he was calling me from Bangladesh because the government of Bangladesh needed his help for an oil rig project that they were going to do. And he would be gone for a while. And I said, that's fine, just stay in touch.
And here's another red flag that a lot of cons used. Mine used it on me too. A country like Bangladesh, you can fit on the head of a pin the number of Americans who know anything about Bangladesh.
Correct.
So using a country like Bangladesh or using any kind of faraway, obscure reference, it's carte blanche to say whatever you want about it, because you're not going to, wait a minute, that's not how Bangladesh works. Like, you don't know. Like, who the hell knows anything about Bangladesh?
Right.
That was totally intentional on his part. He could have picked Jamaica, Barbados, Mexico, someplace where a lot of Americans know something about, but no, it was Bangladesh. It's far away, and most people don't know anything about Bangladesh, and that is the plan. So whenever people start telling you about, it's a red flag, these far away places that you have no chance in heck of confirming, be warned. That's another red flag. But okay, so he tells you he's in Bangladesh helping the government with their oil drilling expeditions.
Right. And he sent pictures from Bangladesh with.
So of course it's true. It's
Right.
like, I want people to understand you didn't stand a freaking chance.
Well,
Because at this point, you care about him.
stand that from the beginning. It really was hard, but I'm getting better at understanding. That's
Well,
why.
I mean, listen, he got you to care about him. He got you invested in his life, in his story at this point. Now he's in Bangladesh. You saw pictures of him on the airplane, and now you're seeing pictures of him in Bangladesh. Of course it's real. How could it not be? I'm sure at that point, no part of you thought it was fake.
Right. No, I didn't. I didn't at all.
And that's what bugs me, because I interview a lot of victims. A lot of victims contact me for help. And what really bugs me, and I can never be upfront about it because I don't want to offend them, but a lot of victims are so incapable of admitting they got conned. They'll say things to me like, well, I knew something was weird, or I knew something didn't feel right. And I'm like, no, you didn't. You gave them the money. Why can't you admit you bought it lock, stock, and barrel? You didn't. I believed everything my con said. That's why I gave her all that money. You believed everything your con said. It's just this weird psychological block where they can't admit they were taken, even though the money has exchanged hands and they are a victim, capital V. They still can't bring themselves to admit they fell for it. They'll couch it like, well, I knew something wasn't right. No, you didn't.
Yeah, right.
You didn't know anything wasn't right. Everything seemed right. Right?
It's very true. Very, very true.
I'm so grateful you and I are at that similar level where we can admit we fell for it.
You know that I fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. And that's why I've spent time trying to figure out how could I have? Why did I? And much psychiatry work.
Sure.
But what I have found out, of course, a lot of things about myself, but certainly about just trying to help others because we are so vulnerable.
Yeah.
And it can happen to anyone at any time. And if I can help prevent that, to tell you the truth, yes, there were those red flags, but how easy it is for us to ignore them. And
Well, if
especially,
nobody points them out to you, if you don't, if no one, if you didn't see an interview like the one you're doing now, how the hell would you know what the red flags are? Because he seems like this kind, loving man. He's got pictures with him and Obama. Like he seems, he's real. You saw his LinkedIn, his website. Like, there's no way on earth you could have known unless you saw an interview like the one you're doing now. There's no way.
right, that's true. That's true. And never in a million years would I have thought I'd gone. So, I didn't pay attention. So, anyway, I was very engaged with him. And then he goes on this mission, supposedly in Bangladesh. And the story evolves now that he is going to be incommunicado because he has to be on the ship out in the sea and he has no good communication with me. So he wants me to speak with his banker because what he's trying to do, and it gets even better, what he's trying to do is buy a special oil rig for the government of Bangladesh, and it's going to cost $65 million. And he's got the money, so no problem. So I said, okay, good luck to you. Hope everything goes well. Talk to you soon. And he said, I'll be in touch, but if anything comes up, my banker or his attorney would be in touch if I needed anything. I said, well, thank you. I won't need anything. So I was traveling, as I said at the time. And the next thing I hear, he calls me in a panic and says, I need you to do something for me. And, let me just stop here to say that he had mentioned something to this early on about maybe 2 months into the scam, about me having access to his bank account. Okay, there's your other red flag. Nobody
I
gives you
mean,
access.
it is, and it isn't, because I think I know what you're about to say. He let you log into his bank account's website.
Yes. But not until that night when he called me and he said, I need you to help me because I'm not going to have access to it. And because I need to buy the oil rig, I need you to have access to it. And I said, Michael, that's where I draw the line. I do not want access to your bank account. Well, there was pleading and help me and all that stuff that happens. And I finally acquiesced and I said, okay. So he took me through it himself, signed me in. We did it on like the screen now. And by golly, if it wasn't a bank account from Michael Lawrence with 200 something million dollars in there,
Wow.
showing travel expenses that were deducted, but plenty of money. And so he said, here's my password and here you go, because I'm going to need help getting this oil rig.
And this is a red flag. It's a confidence trick. He is going to prove to you how much he trusts you. There is no one on earth other than my husband who I would let log into my bank account. No effing way. So the confidence trick here is, I trust you so much. Log into my bank. I have $250 million that I know you're not going to steal. And you have to admit, it's a genius confidence trick, because how could you not trust him in return?
Well, exactly.
You were a lamb getting led to slaughter. How could you have known? It looked like a real bank. You logged in, you know what a bank looks like.
I had many conversations with the banker, if you can believe that.
Oh no, I believe it. Now, how did the banker sound?
Oh, he had an English accent and sounded very, very astute. He told me about how to bank it. There was the logo of the bank. I checked the bank. It looked like a legitimate bank from the website.
So at this point, you've logged into his bank account. It looks like a legitimate bank account. you know what online banking looks like. You do that yourself. So it must have been so sophisticated and believable, it fooled you. And then not
Yeah.
only that, you're speaking to an Englishman on the phone who is the banker. So of course it's real. And what we have here is my worst nightmare. And I've said this again and again and again. God knows how far my con artist got working by herself. If she had a team of people, no one would stand a chance. No one, because all the people my con artist had, she made up. They were figments of her imagination. But here you are talking to an Englishman who claims to be his banker. He tells you there's an inheritance his father left him, right? And all of a sudden, that inheritance owes a ton of tax.
Right, right. Which is at the same time while he's trying to buy the oil rig.
Right.
Right? So he's got to pay the taxes not only on the inheritance, but actually on this oil rig too. So I'm in a panic because I'm thinking, and the taxes were hefty. And I can't remember if they were 12 million. Maybe it was about 12 million. It's been a while. I tried to forget.
Hear you.
I expressed to him that I didn't have, obviously, he knew I didn't have that kind of money, but if I could help in a small way, I would try. And he said, don't worry. I have friends in Japan. I have friends in Australia. I have my best friend who's with me. They can all contribute a couple $1 million. So he made the threshold high enough for me to believe that I felt I needed to lift my game to be something better than a couple thousand.
Right. Right. And ultimately, how much did he get from you?
He got close to $1 million.
Close to $1 million. My gosh. And the way he got it is just unbelievable, but it's all true. How did it start? He tells you he needs help. Other people are contributing. What's the first sum of money he gets from you?
Well, he got a big hefty amount the first one around. It wasn't a couple thousand, it was several 100,000. And I'll tell you what, at the time, I will tell you that I felt nauseous. I
I'm
really
sure.
did. And why I didn't take that as a sign, but I didn't. I then began to feel guilty because I felt bad that I wasn't going to help him. So that made me even think that I needed to give him more. That's how crazy this whole thing
Well, you
became.
at this point you care deeply about him. I think whether or not you want to admit it, I think you did love him at this point. I think you loved what you thought he was. You loved the future you thought you had together, possibly. And here he is in trouble. And are you going to step up and do something to help this person who could be the love of your life? Or are you going to sit idly by and watch him sink? And,
That's very true. He could
and
be the
he
love.
knew the type of person you were, and he knew what you would respond to, and he
Yeah.
knew you would help him. He knew it.
Yeah. Very true, Jonathan. And you know what? It was the thought of him being in my life was certainly an instigator because I thought he could be the love of my life.
Yeah.
And certainly I was going to help him.
That's what
And
people need to understand, especially people who would leave a mean comment. How could you have been so stupid? You know, and I said this again and again and again. Con artists don't outsmart you. They're not smarter than you. They outfeel you. And if a
yes,
con artist can get you to fall in love with him or even
yeah,
fall in like with him and care about him, you're sunk.
yeah,
You know, because he can create this scenario where he's in trouble and you can help him. And who wouldn't? Who wouldn't help him in your position? Anyone would. So it has nothing to do with being dumb or him being more clever. It's he's got you by the heart. He's
he did.
got you by the heart.
He did. Definitely. He did. And he was in a panic. There was the wonderful ability for him to create. He was in a panic and he was worried, and he projected that onto me, if that's possible. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
He
Because
was
he'd never been this way up until this point.
right. Now he became very distraught. What am I going to do? This is so important for me to sell the business. You know, it's my one last opportunity. This government is going to turn me away. et cetera, et cetera. So it was a panic-stricken feeling coming from him.
And how did the money exchange hands?
It was through wires transfers.
And
Through
that is another red flag I have learned in investigating a lot of these cases. When anyone asks you to send a wire, take a step back. Every con artist, it's their favorite modus operandi because wires are almost instantaneous. And once you wire the money away, it's gone.
Yes, it is. It is gone. And I'll tell you, the banks did, there was one bank, and I'll tell you who it is, Regions Bank, caught it because I would have been out another several $100,000. They caught the scam, but when they called me, I didn't believe them. That's how frightening.
I mean, and
these
also that's the power of love, because by this point, you were so invested in this man and this, not even the relationship, but the potential of the
Yes.
relationship, the happy ever after. And listen, one thing that binds us all as human beings on this planet, in this world, is we all want the happily ever after.
Of course we do.
We all do. Like,
Right.
it might look different for different people, but at the end of the day, everybody wants the happily ever after, especially if you've never had it. And here it is, dangling in front of you. So of course you're going to move heaven and earth to help him, this man you think could be your happily ever after. I totally get that, but I'm putting a finer point on it because I want everyone listening and watching to get that too. That is their currency. They dangle that happily ever after in front of your face, and they know you'll move mountains to make it happen. And sure enough, you did. So you're sending hundreds of thousands of dollars via wires to help him. And the other red flag we need to point out here, it's called scarcity, right? Car dealers do this. You go to buy a car. We can get you a good deal for 20,000, but you got to do it by Friday or it's gone. You know, they make you think time's running out. Everything is going to go down now. So here he is in Bangladesh, and he's going to lose everything. Like, you have to act fast. So when you have to act fast, coupled with the bank wires, coupled with the drama, that's another red flag. All this sudden drama, his dad died, the inheritance, the tax, Bangladesh, he's going to lose all this money. He's getting all these people to help him. He suddenly now seems distraught. Whereas before, he was Mr. Sunshine, Mr. Ray of Hope and love, and you know, texting you and messaging you and talking to you every single day, telling you, whispering sweet nothings into your ear.
Yes, absolutely.
Now he's panicked and grief-stricken, and any human being with a soul would want to help. So I totally get it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. You're not, and that's the problem, is you're a regular human being. He is not. He's part of a team of scammers.
Yes. Very despicable. Very despicable.
So the bank, you said it was Regions Bank,
that caught the scam.
you're in the process of wiring even more money, and what do they tell you?
They said, I believe that you're being scammed by someone that you've met online. I mean, he knew it right then and there.
Wow. So this was not their first rodeo.
Exactly. And I was in shock. I was in such shock that I didn't believe them. And I said, that can't be happening. And he said, believe me, it is. And so we're going to stop this wire transfer. It will not go through. And you need to follow these procedures that they needed for the bank. And I said,
and how much of a chunk of money was in jeopardy at this point for him? What did they stop?
Another several $100,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've gotten a few $100,000. This was another few $100,000. And all the while you're thinking you're helping pay the tax on the inheritance was his equipment in Bangladesh seized or something?
It was, let me think. He wanted to buy a new equipment, new oil rig, because the one they had wasn't up to snuff, is what he told me. So he needed to buy a brand new one, something that they didn't have there. And that's what this was all about.
Right. And then what did you do after the bank said, we're not allowing it through?
I called him right away and he was not available. So I sent a message to the banker, and his name was
English banker.
And his name was Daniel. Yeah, his bank. And his name was Daniel.
Okay, Daniel. Sorry, I keep interrupting. His name was Daniel, the English banker. Okay.
And so Daniel said, "What's the problem?" And I said, "This is a fraud. You're scamming me. I want to know what's going on." Well, you can't believe what he said. He said, "That is absolutely not true. You can check our credentials." He went on and on and on. And he said, "And I'll have Michael call you." I waited a couple of hours. The phone rang, and it was Michael or whoever this scammer was. And he said, "How can you not believe me? My darling, this is not a scam. You tell that banker that we're going to sue them." And I don't mean to laugh because I mean, I was horrified. You can't even imagine. I did not want to even breathe, to be honest with you. It was horrible. And I said, "What do you mean this is not a scam? Why are they telling me that it is?" And he said, "They don't know what they're talking about. I'm going to have my attorney call them for you." I said, "Michael, you're not getting one more damn dime of my money until I know what's going on." And I hung up, and I'll tell you, I was sick. I was absolutely sick to even think that this could happen to me. Never in a million years could I think that this would happen to me. And I was out of town, so I was traveling. And I, Michael said he was going to have his attorney call. So I said, I think I told him I'd be back in where at home tomorrow, whatever. And sure enough, in the morning, I get a call from Marcus, who is his attorney in London, saying the same thing. "You don't know what you're talking about. Give me the name of the banker. We're going to call them. This is not a scam."
Now, this
And I
attorney,
even
let me interrupt you. This attorney calling you now from London is Michael's attorney, a different voice than Michael's banker,
yes,
but
yes,
still British.
yes, yes,
And Americans know this, but it's worth pointing out.
yes, it
The
is.
power of a British accent in this
Yeah.
country is insane. It just has an air of credibility. They're eloquent and educated sounding. If it's a British banker or a British attorney talking, you're all ears.
Yes, unfortunately, you're right.
Yeah, so that's all part. This is all part of the puppet show he's put on. He
Oh,
has
yeah.
legitimate sounding people.
And the next day, he called me, Michael called me, and again, he swore up and down it was not a scam. I told him that I was done, that I believed the banker, that I wanted my money back, and that I was pursue all channels to get it, and wanted to know what he was doing and who he was. And he began to cry and got very upset and said, "I can't believe you don't believe me after all this time we've, been talking to each other, and you've seen me." So he threw that in there too.
Right,
Um,
because of the video chat.
yes, of
And
course.
I want to point out about the crying,
Yes.
because this is a theme that comes up again and again in a lot of con cases I'm investigating, and it's in my own con case. The power of somebody crying. For regular people like you and me, we think, oh, they must be overcome with emotion. This is real to them. They're crying. Let me comfort them. It's so powerful. Never do you think that those tears are fake. I
Right.
witnessed my con artist cry, Oscar-worthy actress perform. It's only now looking back, I know it was fake. At the time, it was real. But this is what they do. They are brilliant actors and actresses, and they can cry at the drop of a hat, and it's believable. So you confront him, and he's crying over the phone, and it sounds real.
It sounds very real. And what I did is I gave him the benefit of the doubt to think that maybe he is a real person. And not that he didn't scam me. I figured by this time that there was something very bad that had happened. But I said to him, because he kept crying. He says, "I have nothing more to live for." And I said, "Yes, you do. You have your daughter." Because remember, now he has a daughter at Oxford, and you have your friends. And so I know you'll pull through this. And he said, "I'm sure I won't. I'm going to call you right back." So he hung up. And again, I have to tell you the emotions that I was feeling, and I was physically sick, plus my own tears of trying to think, how did this happen to me? And he called back and he said, "I hope one day you will forgive me for what I'm about to do." And the next thing is, I heard a gunshot and he screamed. And the phone went dead. And I will tell you, Jonathan, as silly as this sounds, I really thought it was real. I really did,
I mean, you heard a gunshot and he sounded suicidal.
but it wasn't real. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, my time. Supposedly he's in Bangladesh, wherever in the world he was. And the phone rang at 8 a.m. And I was in I couldn't sleep all night, but I think I just had dozed off. And it was his attorney, Marcus, with his English accent. Hi, Elizabeth. Do you know where Michael is? And I said, Marcus, he's dead. And he said, what? He's dead. I said, yes, he committed suicide because I think this whole thing is a scam. And he began to tell me about how it was not a scam and how upset he was. And his best friend is now dead. And now he has to get a hold of the Bangladeshi government. And they kept streaming me along.
When Marcus, the British lawyer, calls you in the ultimate cruelty and knife twisting maneuver, he has you tell him that
Yeah.
Michael is dead. You heard him commit suicide.
Yes.
And he acted shocked and upset by that.
Distraught. And he now is going to get a hold of he had to tell his daughter, and Michael's daughter, and he would have to call the Bangladeshi government to see if he can have the body brought back to England.
Wow. But at this point, do you think he's dead at this point?
Yes, I thought it was a real person who had scammed me, but also had committed suicide. So I really thought it was real.
Yeah. Add to that the layer of this was your happily ever after who just shot himself in the head as you bore witness over the phone. Like, that really is a one psychological mind F on you.
Yes, yes, it was. It was. It took me a while to really even be able to talk about it. It's taken me 4 years to talk about it like this.
I'm sure.
I've not been able to.
At what point did you go to police?
Okay, so it was the end of August, beginning of September, I think, when this all happened. And I went to the police within the first couple of days after the suicide. I called them right away.
And you told them, I think there's a suicide. I heard him kill himself.
Yes,
And what
yes.
did they tell you in response?
Well, there were two detectives that came to my house, and the one detective who actually ended up investigating was quite specific about the details, wanted to know everything, and promised me that they would look into this, they would take it seriously, and that he would get back to me as to, because I gave him all the information, pictures, names, so he could do the the image search. And within a week, they came back and told me who it was. And of course, it was a uh, a Russian gentleman
The
who,
picture that Michael was using of himself at all these places and with Obama, that was a real person who had nothing to do with you or the phone calls or messages. It was just a picture he had stolen.
yes, yes, of a Russian scholar who they took all the pictures off his Facebook page.
Wow.
Yeah. And this person wasn't in it alone. There were others.
Oh, yeah, because you had somebody at least playing the lawyer, somebody playing the banker, you had somebody playing Michael. My God, it was like a theatrical armada of splashy characters, all tricking you, like working in unison to trick you.
Yes.
You
There were
didn't stand a chance. None of us would have stood a chance. If you have multiple people, it reminds me of that movie, The Spanish Prisoner. Highly recommend, with Steve Martin in a dramatic role. But basically, it's similar to what happened to you. It's a bunch of people acting, conspiring to scam one person, and someone's pretending to be the FBI, and someone's pretending to be the victim has no idea. Like, how could you?
Right, right. Well, I just don't wish this on anyone. I really don't. And if I can help people to recognize and be safe if you're going to go online dating, be very safe. Make sure that the online um, whatever it is platform has safety measures in place. Number one. Number two, I think you need to be really mindful of the red flags. And again, my gut intuition along the lines of, gee, this doesn't sound quite right, but I ignored them. Because you do think that there is a possibility of a romance. And that's why,
Oh, and
I
that
was on.
drowns everything out. Believe me, I know. Believe me,
Yes.
I've been very fortunate. I've been married now, gosh, 16 years, and very happy. But I kissed a lot of frogs to
I
find
know.
my prince.
I,
So I know I I'm ashamed of some of the things I've done in my past to get someone to love me. I'm ashamed, but I know the feeling. Like when you think the happily ever after is just beyond your reach, you'll do anything. You'll do anything. And I did anything and everything. I mean, luckily I wasn't scammed, but I know that feeling of just wanting to surrender to it all and find that happiness that you see in movies and hear in songs and read about in books. And that's so powerful. And they dangle that.
Powerful. And I will tell you something. Again, it is, along the line of now finally finding the support I need and talking to people, that it has happened to folks I know that I didn't even know that they were scammed. And so it can happen to any of us. And I will tell you, Jonathan, I think you know my background. Had leadership roles in the aviation industry for years.
You're like a big time executive.
And I and
You know
I
people.
I also work for the Department of Homeland Security. So it wasn't like I was totally not smart enough to figure out that something wasn't right.
Yeah.
But I just believed in myself, that I trusted this person, I trusted myself, that I knew what I was doing. Even though red flags were there.
Right.
You've got
But no one, again, had you have heard the interview you're giving now, this would not have happened to you.
Oh, that's for sure. Oh,
You would
that's
have seen the first red flag.
all the investigations I've done since then and the organizations that I've tapped into, they have been so helpful for me to help others.
And the most amazing news about your case, police have arrested perpetrators.
Yes,
What's
three.
the latest?
So there are three defendants. They all have pleaded not guilty. The uh, the first hearing was in March of this year, where they pleaded not guilty. There is a trial that will happen, we think, within the next month to 3 months. The ADA is working very hard on this case. He's done a lot of work. It's kept me very much in the loop. There are three other individuals that were scammed along with my same scam. One in California, a person in Tennessee, and a person in Ohio.
So
And
this entire elaborate Michael with the pictures with Obama, with the oil wells, oil drilling with Bangladesh, this whole story, there are three other victims who fell for it too in multiple states.
yeah, yes,
And you told me the FBI is involved.
yes, they were involved. Yes.
So this is a lot bigger than just you.
Yes, it is. And I didn't realize that. I had initially just thought it was me, but it happens to men and women, as we know. And there are multiple victims in my case. Yes.
I applaud you for talking to me today, and I applaud you for telling the story. I know it's painful, but I think good will come from it. I think you will prevent a bunch of people who hear it, and
Thank
they'll remember it when it starts to happen to them, because these aren't the only three scammers pulling this thing. There are hundreds of them, thousands of them every
Yes.
day on all the dating apps, you
Yes.
know, trying to dangle what we all want, the happily ever after.
Well, and I don't, just as I've become more and more aware, obviously, of scammers, and the cost has been phenomenal. It's over $3 billion last year in scamming. A lot of it is online, the romance scams.
Yep.
That number is it's way over that number, but
Oh, absolutely. Because the
it's,
majority of victims aren't like you, aren't like me. They
I
go
know,
gently into that good night. They don't breathe a word.
no. And it happens to men and women, as you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Anything I can do to help, and thank you for helping me. I do appreciate it, Jonathan. I really do.
thank you for telling me your story, and I will let you know if anyone reaches out who might have fell victim to a similar thing, and put them in touch with your prosecutor, because I bet you there are more.
Oh, I'm sure there are. Mhm.
Because he seems to have really had it down, so rehearsed and so polished, and to create a bank website that mirrored an actual bank that you could log into and see a balance. That was
Right.
crucial in getting the money from you, because
Yes,
I'm sure when the first wire went through, you're comfortable because you think, this guy's got $250 million. I logged into his bank.
you're absolutely right.
He's good for it.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And there was, I think I mentioned to you, there was a point where I thought, gee, all his other friends are giving millions and I'm just giving a little bit, right?
Right. And you're supposed to be the love of his life.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's all so brilliantly orchestrated
It
to
was.
to pull on every heartstring you have.
And I think I shared with you, of course, everything's been removed, but the websites that he had, the information that he shared, the pictures alone, of course, and just the his wherewithal of knowing what buttons to push, right, and when, and they do. They can do that brilliantly, which is it's devastating, and these people need to be punished. Punished, really punished. And I hope justice will prevail. I really am praying for that.
Yeah. I hope he becomes an involuntary organ donor, but sadly, we
Yeah,
don't live in that country, but they deserve it. God knows.
yeah.
Um,
With the people they've hurt, it's just there's no
oh,
excuse. It's
yeah,
terrible.
no, you can't. I know. And you've had a rough time. Like, were you suicidal at one point?
Yes, yes. At many points, I was suicidal, and certainly the first year, I had no reason I thought to live. Um, if it hadn't been for some dear friends to support me uh, emotionally, to give me support, I probably wouldn't be here. And that was another thing that I learned through the process is the suicide rate for those that have been scammed are very, very, very high. And I understand that. I do understand that. And that is something in my life and my faith that I never believed in. But I will tell you, I did not feel I had any reason to live.
Yeah. And I've been there as well, not from my scam, but just, early on in my life, not wanting to be gay. I wanted, suicide seemed like the only way out. So I know that feeling. And
Yeah.
for anyone watching or listening right now who thinks that, I promise you it's an illusion. It's not true. Just
Yeah.
like in any storm, any hurricane in real life, the sun eventually comes out again. And you
Yes.
have to hang on, and you have to believe the sun will eventually come out again. You're not always going to feel this way. Things are going to change. And even in your own life, you're going on now to help people by sharing your story. I promise you, and I'll let you know when I get messages, this story will stop other scammers pulling the same thing on people. Looking
Well,
back now, my final question before I let you go, knowing what you know now, if you could advise go back in time, when would you have pulled the plug on this guy? When would from the first what would have been the first red flag to make you think, you know what? That's weird. I'm not
I
going.
I think when he did the fire drill and the whole drama in Alaska that he was helping Exxon and BP, I think around that time I probably would have said, I don't need this.
Too much
And
drama.
yeah, too much drama, exactly. And there were other people on the website, actually on the dating site that looked interesting. And not that I needed to do that because I again had taken time off just to really chill. And I was traveling so much. So I really didn't have time to do a lot of dating and meeting people. So how this caught me like it did, there was a reason, like they say. Must be a reason. And I hope the reason is that I'm helping others. I really
Oh, I
do.
know you are. I know you are, because the hallmarks are universal for these types of scams, and you've just laid it out in living color how it can happen. So when anyone listening, everyone's on a dating app, and everyone can fall
Today.
victim to this. If you
I'm understanding that it's happening to younger and younger folks too. It's not just
oh,
So they,
Absolutely. Yeah.
it'd be
With greater ease.
yes, yes. So thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Is there anything else you want to add before I let you go?
I just want everybody to be safe, and I will keep you posted on as we get into the trial and the jury. I think the defendants are asking for a jury trial, so I'll keep you posted on where this goes. But the ADA is excellent, and he's a dog with a bone too, to make
Thank
sure there's
God.
justice.
Awesome. Yeah. Please update me on what happens. It was great talking to you. Thank
I
you so
will.
much.
Thank you, Jonathan.